Coming up on 5 Minute News. US orders 3,000 troops to Eastern Europe to counter Russian aggression. Military begins discharging soldiers who refuse COVID vaccine. And 10 years on, patients of CAR T-cell therapy cured of cancer. It's Thursday, February 3. I'm Anthony Davis. President Joe Biden will send nearly 3,000 extra troops to Poland and Romania to shield Eastern Europe from a potential spillover from the crisis over the massing of Russian troops near Ukraine. Russia has denied plans to invade Ukraine, but signalled it was in no mood for compromise on Wednesday by mocking Britain, calling Prime Minister Boris Johnson utterly confused and accusing British politicians of stupidity and ignorance after one politician confused the Baltic Sea with the Black Sea. Moscow has deployed more than 100,000 troops near Ukraine's borders and said it could take unspecified military measures if its demands are not met, including a promise by NATO never to admit Kiev. A striker squadron of about 1,000 US service members based in Vilseck, Germany, will be sent to Romania, the Pentagon said, while around 1,700 service members, mainly from the 82nd Airborne Division, would deploy from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, to Poland. 300 other service members will move from Fort Bragg to Germany. Biden said the deployment was consistent with what he had told Russian President Vladimir Putin. As long as he is acting aggressively, we're going to make sure we can reassure our NATO allies and Eastern Europe that we're there, he said. The objective, Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby said, was to send a strong signal to Putin and frankly to the world that NATO matters to the United States and it matters to our allies. Soldiers in the US military who refuse to get a COVID-19 vaccine will be immediately discharged, the Army said on Wednesday, saying the move was critical to maintain combat readiness. The Army's order applies to regular Army soldiers, active duty Army reservists and cadets, unless they have approved or pending exemptions, it said in a statement. The discharge order is the latest from a US military branch removing unvaccinated service members amid the pandemic, after the Pentagon made the vaccine mandatory for all service members in August last year. The vast majority of all active service troops have received at least one dose. Roughly 79 uniformed military personnel across the different services have died from the novel coronavirus. Army readiness depends on soldiers who are prepared to train, deploy, fight, and win our nation's wars, Army Secretary Christine Wormuth said. Unvaccinated soldiers present a risk to the force and jeopardize readiness. Other branches of the US military, including the Air Force, have already begun to remove those who've chosen not to receive a COVID vaccine, which were first authorized for emergency use in December 2020 and have now been administered to billions of people around the world without significant side effects. 2 cancer patients are the first to be treated with a revolutionary therapy that engineers immune cells to target specific types of cancer that still possess cancer-killing cells a decade later with no sign of their illness returning. The finding suggests CAR T-cell therapy constitutes a cure for certain blood cancers, although adapting it to treat solid tumors is proving more challenging. CAR, or chimeric antigen receptor T-cell therapy, works by genetically engineering an individual's T-cells to recognize and destroy cancer cells. T-cells are a type of white blood cell that can recognize and destroy foreign cells, including cancer cells, but because cancer is very good at evading immune detection, they often miss their mark. CAR T-cells are engineered to make them better at detecting cancer cells. In trials, CAR T therapy has been extraordinarily successful, putting patients into remission who had just months to live, but the long-term effects had not been extensively studied. Now, Professor Carl June at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia and colleagues report in Nature how cells from the first 2 patients to be treated are faring 10 years on. Both patients were suffering from chronic lymphocytic leukemia when they had CAR T therapy in 2010 and achieved complete remission within months of treatment, meaning all signs and symptoms of their leukemia disappeared. One of the patients, Doug Olson, said he had taken up running half marathons after his treatment. When the researchers examined the patient's blood, they could still identify CAR T cells that were capable of proliferating and killing cancer cells, as well as others that help to shape immune responses. Second-generation T cells, engineered to recognize the tumor and resist the microenvironment, are being tested in clinical trials, including one in leukemia patients at University College London. During a speech yesterday, relaunching the Cancer Moonshot program, President Joe Biden pledged that ending cancer is a White House priority, promising to bring a sense of urgency to the fight against cancer. Biden gave an emphatic speech about the impact of cancer, the number 2 cause of death in the US after heart disease, pledging bold action. You can subscribe to 5-Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5-Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5-Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.